We saw in the previous part how events accelerated and within one day Haytham died and Hassan died, but I wonder, is there a connection between the death of the two? Haytham died in a traffic accident when he was on his way to one of his relatives, who was supposed to help Tariq and Hassan in their injuries. The biggest tragedy is that Hassan died hanging in the bathroom, and now let's see how Tariq and Yasser, who were on their way, will act to Tariq's house to see the dress that Tariq was wearing in the nightmare he saw. Let's see what happens. After Tariq received on his phone the ominous message, which was a picture of his friend Hassan hanging from the ceiling of the bathroom, Yasser and Tariq decided to rush to the village of Al-Ward to decipher this mystery. Yasser now realizes that Tariq was right and that everything that happens will not end except when they go to the house of the shepherd Salem, especially his cursed barn. Yasser and Tariq arrived at the gate of the village of Al-Ward and got out of the car and continued their way walking inside the village. Search. While both Tariq and Yasser were on their way to the house of the shepherd Salem, they saw that young man who showed them the way to the house on the first visit. In this village, if he knows anything? Come on, Yasser, don't waste time and let's head to the barn. Yasser said, well, I will only ask him about the badge that belongs to one of the officers, so that he might know its story. Tariq said, as you wish, I am heading to Salem's house. Yasser went to that young man who met him on the first visit and greeted him. The young man replied, peace be upon him, and said, how are you? I remember you well. I was here last night. He told me how to serve you. Yasser said, please, I want to ask you about something. Is there any of the officers? He entered the barn of the shepherd Salem's house and something strange happened to him. The young man looked at Yasser's hand and saw the emblem. The boy's features changed and his face turned into a frightened and astonished face. The young man said and was astonished, my father is an officer. Yasser said, if you will allow me to meet him and ask him what happened in the past. The young man replied, terrifying Yasser's heart. The young man said, my father has been missing for 10 years. After Yasser saw the sadness that was in the eyes of the young man, he decided to leave him so that he would not afflict him with more sadness, because surely this badge reminds him of his father. Yasser slowed down a little and said to himself, surely, the reason for the old man's anger at Salem was that he was the reason for the disappearance of his son, the officer, the father of this young man. Let us now go to Tariq, who decided to go directly to the barn. Tariq made sure that there was something waiting for him inside. Tariq decided not to wait for Yasser and entered the barn alone. His feet became very heavy and he could not move them normally. Tariq looked at his old one and the shock was. Tariq saw two hands holding his feet from behind. The hands were black and looked very frightening. Tariq looked behind him and did not see anything, but whenever he tried to move and look at his old one, he saw those hands. This shock was not Tariq's first shock. Suddenly, that girl in the black dress that Tariq saw in his dream appeared in front of him. Tariq looked at her and felt as if he had lost his speech from the horror of what was happening with him. The girl said while looking at the ground, humans are very stupid. Tariq said, what? Do you want me? The girl said, I told you before what I want from you. I want you to become Salem's successor. Tarek was thinking that if he asked the girl what she wanted, she would think that he agreed, and in this case she might ask him for something strange. As I asked him to kill his friend Hassan, Tarek said, and if I refused what you say, what will be my fate? The girl replied, smiling, your fate will be like that of the officer who was the cause of his own death. Tarek said while he was afraid, what did you do to the officer? Did you kill him? The girl replied, yes, you can say that. The officer, after Salem's case file has been closed for 10 years, decided to reopen this file again, and because he had a promotion, he wanted to prove that he deserved this promotion, but he made a mistake when he decided to search here. In this place, that girl continued her talk. There was an agreement between us and Salem that if anyone entered here, he would be sacrificed to the king, the might of power, even if Salem was alive at that time. What happened after that is that the officer, when he entered the trap, was asking him for many things, and when he was unable to fulfill his demands, he came here to the barn and began to threaten Jabrat and talk to him in an inappropriate manner until Jabrat got up and dressed him, and then Jabrat rose and made this officer sacrifice himself. Tarek felt that what he was hearing was the path to madness, and had he not seen that nightmare, he would have thought that this girl was crazy and she is from the human race. And you slaughtered him, the girl answered with a laugh. Yes, I slaughtered him. Here, Tarek started thinking, how did these events begin, and why did all of this happen, and who is the power of it? All these questions did not leave Tarek's mind while he was in that unenviable position. Tarek said, I want to know how these events that led to this tragic end to Salem and that officer began. I want to know so that my fate in the end does not become his death. The girl looked at Tarek and said, well, I will tell you everything. The girl said, when Salem moved to this village due to the death of his wife who was struck by the plague, Salem was facing a big problem, which is feeding the child. Salem kept trying a lot to feed the child from goat milk, but the child refused to take milk because it is of course not suitable for his age. One day, Salem woke up to the sound of the screaming of his son, who was very hungry. Salem tried to calm his son, but in vain, and suddenly Salem heard a voice. He whispered in his ears, do you want your child to calm down? Suddenly, a very beautiful girl appeared in front of Salem. Salem was afraid and said, who are you and what do you want? She said, I am here to ask you to choose between your child calming down and between leaving forever, and thus your child will die of starvation. At this moment, Salem was thinking only of saving his infant child,